never heard of beds, and who needed beds anyway? They had blankets, they had pillows, they had mice that skittered along the edges of the room and ate breadcrumbs from the tips of their fingers. The children ate fish for dinner every night. They picked berries and searched for bird eggs and kept watch from high rocks for sails and garbage on the horizon. Except for Louisa. The distance always blurred for her. Sometimes she wished she could get out on the water, get up close to those ships and find out where they came from. There was no way to tell from far away. But it was just a dream, and she never mentioned it to any of the others. Even in her head, she couldn't figure out how to make a seaworthy craft. It didn't take long for Louisa's finger to heal into a nice, neat stump. She rubbed it sometimes and whispered to herself that it was time to grow up and stop being clumsy. She tripped over things easily. She didn't notice roots or loose rocks or places where the earth buckled. She'd kick the ground in frustration and end up hurting her own foot. It was her fault she'd lost a finger. The pigs were fast, but if she'd been a little more agile, they'd have snapped at air. She wondered what she'd tasted like. She hoped she'd tasted good, but not so good that the pig would want more. She tried to remember which one it was that had snapped at her, but even though she was pretty sure it was the one with black spots, she wasn't sure enough to say. Sometimes the children tested what the pigs would eat. The leather flaps of shoe tongues, the bent frames of glasses, Mardi Gras beads, tin cans, pistols, cap guns. There seemed to be no limit to their appetite. The children would stand a few feet away from the fence and toss whatever they were testing high into the air. The pigs moved with an unexpected grace, opening their long mouths and catching whatever came sailing down directly between their teeth. The pigs were remarkable. The children watched them with amazement, their own mouths open, their hands, now empty, coming together of their own will to clap. Hubcaps, the tassels off bicycle handlebars, empty jars of mayonnaise. Gone. All gone in seconds. The grown-ups on the island frowned at the children and never even pretended to help them with their chores. They drank espresso and smoked cigarettes and plugged their noses dramatically whenever the children got too close. As far as the children could tell, the grown-ups never cooked. It's not that they don't know how, Mimi said. She grabbed every opportunity to be the expert. It's that they don't need to. Food appears. Why should they slave over a hot stove? But what do? Louisa said. What do they talk about all day long? Do they ever watch the pigs? Andrew asked. Natasha gulped and puffed out her toddler cheeks. Nobody had the courage to ask. When Natasha fell into the gray water and came out covered in spots and filled with an unquenchable thirst for a parent that even Mimi couldn't solve, the grown-ups flinched at the sight of her. What are they here for? Louisa said. Sometimes she thought, maybe we should just feed them to the pigs. Ships passed by from time to time, usually large cargo ships, but sometimes ocean liners. It was possible the island looked beautiful from a distance. When a ship edged onto the horizon, the children ran to the top of the highest rock and waved. They made Andrew take his shirt off, and Mimi circled it above her head. They didn't shout. They knew their voices weren't strong enough to carry all that way, and they didn't really want the grown-ups to hear them. Not that the grown-ups had ever shown they'd cared. But this was private, and they'd agreed to do it in silence. Only once it seemed that they'd been sighted, but the only difference it made was that a barrel washed up on shore instead of the usual junk. They spent an entire day trying to pry it open, and when they finally got inside, all they found was another child, sleeping. His name was Eddie. If there had been a mirror, Louisa would have known immediately that he